So my name is Doug Richard, and I run a social purpose business called the School for Startups. I always like an ambitious entrepreneur, and therefore when somebody comes to me and says, I don't see any particular limits on my potential reach or growth, that always excites me. Having said that, if they say that when it's perfectly obvious that there are potential limits on their reach or growth, I think they're just silly.
What entrepreneurs need to do in the creative industries is really what entrepreneurs do in every industry. They need to think through who are their natural allies, and they need to think about the broader ecosystem. So we can get so closed in just focusing on what we're doing, but there are always natural allies. Sometimes they're people who need a new story, sometimes they're former competitors, sometimes they're companies that we don't want to work with. But we actually always have natural allies, and we have to think about how we can enable them. How can we make it in their interest for us to be successful? And typically that comes down to the business model. That comes down to how we orchestrate a participation in a transaction whereby they can get an upside in the digital revenues and get pulled into the market.
I'm Steph Acrone, and my stalker, who I'm yet to meet, wrote a Wikipedia page about me recently that says I'm an entrepreneur in the film and technology sectors. If you entered a business startup with a risk management mindset, then I don't think you'd ever start a business. I think you need risk management minded people, and we got one into our business, a core part of our team, very early on because of the nature of our business. But I think you wouldn't ever be the person that starts it up if you're thinking about, risk versus reward. Obviously the reward is a big upside for me personally, and the money excites me because of what it would enable me to do next, not because I sort of want to sit there caressing stacks of cash. So I'm thinking about how I can then blow an even riskier sum of money on something else, I think is why I'm excited about the financial returns. But again, in the same way that thinking about your customers first and about regulation and competitors second doesn't mean that you can't then think carefully about how to mitigate risks once you've decided that the stupid thing that everybody told you wasn't possible is the thing you're going to try and do.
I do think that the real question comes down to one of ambition. As an investor, I can respect somebody who wants to grow a business organically and slowly, but I may or may not invest in that business because I need to see a potential for a return on my investment. Thus, ambition and aspiration play a huge amount in my investment decisions, as in any investor's decision. Thus, people who see boundaries and walls are less likely to get investment.
Part of the reason why we set up Entrepreneur Country is we believe that startups, creative industry startups, digital enablers, wherever they are, they could be based in Cardiff, they could be based in Istanbul, but that they should be discovered. They're solving the problems of corporates, and that wherever they're based, that they should be discovered. And if there's no way for them to become visible, if there's no way for them to have a conversation with the corporates that they're engaging with, then they will stay in a small zone. But that's what Entrepreneur Country is really trying to do, is to lift up and to enable that discovery to happen. So we're reducing the cost and the ability for these startups to become discovered. Now that's a mindset issue, because it's true that some startups, regardless of whether or not they're part of the Entrepreneur Country platform, just think global and get themselves out there at conferences and so forth. But I think that we can help many more of them to actually become visible and discoverable to corporates by virtue of the work that we're doing at Entrepreneur Country.
I'm Helga Henry. I'm Director of Creative Shift. We help businesses, particularly creative and cultural businesses, grow and develop. There are very few game-changing businesses, people who can create a product and thereby create the demand. And everybody points to Apple. Well, of course, nobody knew they wanted an iPhone until they made an iPhone, or an iPad. There wasn't a tablet industry until they made an iPad. But there are a few companies really that can do that. And the SMEs, I think, are perhaps better suited to looking really closely at their customer, getting really close to them and finding out what they need and want, and then filling their needs better for them. Anticipating their needs might be even better, and that's where the creativity comes in.
Every entrepreneur has a choice: disrupt or engage. Disrupt the established industry or engage with it. Now, if you could raise all the money in the world, you possibly could disrupt them. But that opportunity is not available to everybody. And so what entrepreneurs really need to do, in particular in the creative industries, is to solve problems for their natural allies, which are the larger companies, which exist in kind of a traditional established way, And the creative industries, precisely because they're creative, because they're entrepreneurs that are taking in different applications and tools and ways of thinking and going about this. They need to really help those larger corporates understand the strategic value that they're bringing to them. So very few creative industry startups are going to ever achieve a massive financial value. But what they may do is they may bring a strategic value to the larger companies that they partner with. And that's what they need to be focusing on.